and welcome to the program. I am Abisola Adebayo. Nigeria state-owned NNPC Limited has officially started drilling for oil and gas at a field in the northern part of the country that has reserves of 1 billion barrels as the country seeks to produce crude outside the Niger Delta region of the country for the first time. According to NNPC Limited, the phase 1 of the Kolmani project would have an oil refinery, gas processing unit, 300 megawatt power plant and fertilizer plant producing 2,500 tons a day. NNPC Limited first announced in 2019 the discovery of crude oil, gas and condensate in commercial quantity in the Kolmani area between Bauchi and Gombe states in northeastern Nigeria, a region that has been battling with Islamist insurgency for a while. In the flag-off ceremony earlier this week, President Buhari urged NNPC and its partners to work with local communities and draw lessons from the restive Niger Delta, where militants have in the past blown up pipelines, accusing oil companies of neglecting locals. Although no major oil firm is involved in the project, local firm Sterling Global Oil and New Nigeria Development Commission, a conglomerate owned by 19 northern states, will be in charge of the project. Now, what exactly does this mean for Nigeria's oil and gas industry? You know, oil and gas expert Bala Zaka is on the program today and he will be joining me to discuss all of this further. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. So,
thank you.
Let me start by asking, what is your reaction to this? You know, Nigeria started drilling oil in the northern part of the region. How would you react to that?
Well, when I heard about the discovery around Kolmani and the arrival of Mr. President for flag off, well, it was something I appreciated generally. But looking at it also as an expert or as a practitioner in the oil and gas industry, I've always known that Nigeria has basins. You know, we have sedimentary basins and we have promising basins. As I speak to you now, I think we have about close to about 7 basins or thereabouts, starting with the prolific Niger Delta Basin. You know, we have so much fossil fuel there, or oil and gas, as people describe it. When you look at Lagos area or Lagos axis, I mean, Lagos axis falls into the basin we call Dahomey Basin. Oil has been discovered also there. When you look at the Anambra Basin, you know, I mean, oil and gas have been discovered. Then we have other basins that I have always described, or we can technically describe as potential basins. And those basins are like the Benue Trough, the Chad Basin, the Gongola Basin, and you have the Bidda Basin and the Sokoto Basin. So technically, Kolmani falls under Gongola Basin. So based on these discoveries, I mean, we are happy as practitioners, we are happy as Nigeria, and I think the oil and gas industry globally is happy. What we are waiting to see is the crystallization of activities, you know, so that at the end of the day, I mean, Nigeria will benefit from it, surrounding communities will benefit from it, the oil and gas industry community, whether locally or globally, will appreciate these discoveries.
This particular oil field is proposed to produce an estimated 50,000 barrels of oil per day. You know, that sounds like a big deal. What would you say to that?
Well, when you talk about endowments, when you talk about progress, as long as it is called progress, even if the increment or the increase is infinitesimal, as long as it is a positive increase, I mean, people will always appreciate it. What we don't want as Nigeria is we don't want stunted growth. We don't want a progress that will be backwards. But as long as it's a positive progress moving forward, we will appreciate it. Because you're just talking about oil now. You know, as we speak, Nigeria's proved reserve in terms of crude oil endowment is in excess of 36 billion barrels. And when you talk about crude natural gas, Nigeria's proved reserve in terms of natural gas is in excess of 200 trillion cubic feet. And when you talk about potential reserve, you're talking about something close to about 600 trillion cubic feet. That is huge. Because as you see Qatar today, I mean, World Cup is going on in Qatar. As lead as Qatar, as bright and as rich and as glamorous as Qatar. Qatar is just benefiting from just natural gas or their gas endowment. Then a country like Nigeria has natural gas and also crude oil endowments. In fact, Nigeria is more of a gas nation than a crude oil nation. So when you look at that, the only thing you can ask is what has been wrong in terms of trying to transform Nigeria into a great country? What is that thing that has made it difficult for Nigeria to diversify so that we can look like other great nations?
So now, how beneficial exactly is this discovery going to be to, Nigeria's revenue generation?
Well, first of all, when you talk about fossil fuel, Nigeria has been enriched. And whether people accept it or not, as we speak today, crude oil and gas constitute a very strong energy source globally. And people should not be deceived. In the next century and the century beyond, crude oil and gas will continue to be relevant and will continue to remain a very strong source of energy. Because as I speak to you right now, even coal is a very strong energy source and income generator for some nations. So moving forward, crude oil and gas will continue to be relevant. But we even are talking about cleaner fossil fuel. Even when you go to cleaner fossil fuel, Nigeria is more of a gas nation than an oil nation. What has always been the problem of Nigeria is trying to manage our God-given endowments. And let us get it very, very clear. Quote me that I said, the natural endowments that we have had, whether in energy or human beings or other solid mineral, is something that we can only appreciate the Almighty. But management, having visionary leaders that will make sure Nigeria is on the right pedestal and that will make sure Nigeria is on the right track, has always been the problems that we've been having. Because as I speak to you right now, Nigeria has everything to be an energy hub. Nigeria has everything to be the continental hub for Africa. But management, having that God-given endowment is one thing. Ability to manage it and crystallize it into something that will be beneficial to citizens, whether at local levels in Nigeria or to the Nigerian community or to the continent of Africa or to the global community, is another thing entirely.
Talking about management now, the situation with the Niger Delta region is not news to a lot of people, despite how blessed that region is. So what are the things that you would think the government should do or put in place so they would not repeat the same mistakes with the Niger Delta region?
I think this is my suggestion to the government of Nigeria. The government of Nigeria should come out clean. If we are having insecurity issues, say we are having insecurity issues. If we are having vandalization or theft or kidnapping issues, say we are having that. And the reason why it's always good to come out clean and be honest is when you say the truth, then people are ready to cooperate with you. But if you are losing investors and you are telling your citizens that the investors are moving away because they want to go into other sources of energy or they are diversifying. Meanwhile, in real sense, the investors are running away from business climate hostilities. Business climate hostility, this time around, I'm not talking only about the oil and gas industry. When you talk about business climate hostilities, they are probably running away from armed robbery. They are probably running away from extortion. They are probably running away from general insecurity. They are probably running away from community issues. They are probably running away from high cost of operations, like energy cost and the rest. So sometimes it's good to say it so that citizens will collectively make sure they support their governments to get it right. Because if the government is doing well, then citizens can be taken care of.
Right, so do you think this discovery might eventually spur solution to the security challenges in that region? Because how exactly is the government expected to attract foreign investment if there is no security in that region?
Well, like one thing about first of all, let us get this clear. Crude oil and gas is an international product, or they are international products. And that simply means you will continue to get foreign direct investors. You will continue to see the interest of the international investors and the international community. But there is one thing about the oil and gas industry. No matter how sweet your crude oil looks like, no matter how high the API gravity looks like, no matter how high what we call mobility ratio of your crude oil looks like, no matter how nice looking and other characteristics, or attributes of your crude oil and gas look like, if there is no security, your country or your product or your environment will not look like an attractive investment haven. So the first thing oil and gas industry practitioners look out for is security. So, and the security in the context of Nigeria is something artificial. With all the opportunities that are bound now that should make Nigeria to generate so much money, it is not the fault of anybody but Nigerians that we have bandits. It is the fault of Nigerians that we have kidnapping. It is the fault of Nigeria that we have community issues. It is the fault of Nigeria that we have pipeline vandalization. But if we can come together in national interest and most importantly, support our leaders and make sure also we have visionary leaders, of course, security is something we can nip in the bud. Once we fix security, then everybody, whether local or international investors, will see Nigeria as a positive and a very good investment haven. And if they come in to invest, coupled with the corporations of Nigeria, then it will be a win-win situation for all parties.
Right, so let me ask you this question as an expert. Are you confident that this project will be a success, considering the fact that even the refineries, most of the refineries in this country are not even working right now?
Whenever I'm asked a question about the success of Nigeria, especially in terms of crystallizing God-given wealth, into positive products, I tend to be a bit reserved. I will continue to be a bit reserved because I have my practical reasons. As I speak to you right now, despite the need for energy, fossil fuel, in the context of Nigeria, quote me that I said, in Nigeria today, we do not have up to 15 active drilling rigs. And if you don't have active drilling rigs, how are you going to produce to meet up with your OPEC quota? How are you going to produce to even meet up with your internal budget plans and take care of your budget deficit? So it is one thing to be blessed with the resources. It is another thing to make sure you have visionary leaders that are supported and are surrounded by supporting lieutenants, so that everything about that endowment will yield positive products for the general benefits of everybody, whether the citizens, whether the country, whether foreign direct investors, whether the continent of Africa or the global community.
Right, so this discovery is the first of its kind in the country's north. Do you expect more of this in that side of the country?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, like I said, we have potential basins. In fact, those basins, we call them potential basins, and sometimes they are described as frontier basins, especially in the Petroleum Industry Act. What that simply means is they have so much endowment that we can never tell whether maybe they are in commercial quantity or they are not in commercial quantity. One thing about endowment is this: you can have it down there, but sometimes it is the technology that will determine whether you can deploy the technology and be able to recover whatever you need. Sometimes again, it could be security issues. We could have issues again with bad governance. We could also have issues with bad policies. So there are so many things. But our hope and prayer is that we will continue to make discoveries, not only in the oil and gas industry. We pray to make more discoveries in solid minerals. We hope and pray to make discoveries in agriculture. We hope to make discovery in science and technology, engineering, and the rest. But it is one thing to make all these positive discoveries. It is another thing to have leaders and we have technocrats that will make sure we benefit. And let me give you a practical example.
Right.
If you look at the way and manner the oil and gas industry in Nigeria has been mismanaged, quote me that I said, had it been the crude oil and gas in Nigeria, or that we have in Nigerian reservoirs, were not natural gifts, if they were to be based on creativity of leaders, if they were to be based on transparency of leaders, if they were to be based on the morality of leaders, quote me that I said Nigerian crude oil and gas will have disappeared to the reservoir of some countries. And that's the extent to which we want our leaders to help and put our country, which in all the other aspects, put our country on the right trajectory. Once we get it right on the right trajectory, quote me that Nigeria stands to become a great country and a leader, not only within the continent of Africa, but among the Committee of Nations.
So although one would agree that this is one of the biggest discoveries of the President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration, but you know, some people are beginning to toe the line of, oh, this discovery was made possible because of the APC administration in government. What would your reaction be to that?
Well, this is the way I will answer your question. If you ask an average person that doesn't really know much about the history of oil and gas in Nigeria, they will tell you that crude oil was discovered in Oloibiri in 1956 or 58. But I can tell you as a practitioner that searching for crude oil in the Niger Delta started as far back as 1948. That was the period it started. So, but many people will not know. When you even talk about the Gongola Basin, search for oil in the Gongola Basin started a long time ago. The only thing I can tell you is within this time frame where we now have a President Muhammadu Buhari in power, certain things came into crystallization. But I will always say one thing. For a good Nigeria, we should put political affiliation away. We should put religious affiliation away. We should put regional affiliation and sectarian affiliations away. What we need to do is to look at national interest. And our prayer is that, yes, Kolmani activity started ages before even President Muhammadu Buhari thought of going into politics. But within his time as a president, yes, certain things crystallized. And our belief is long after President Muhammadu Buhari, we will see more. Other frontier basins will be explored. But at the end of the day, Nigeria will be the one to be better for it. Not any political party, not any individual, but the totality of Nigerians.
Right. Oil and gas expert Bala Zakka, thank you so much for coming on the program, and thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
Well, we'll go on a short break now, and when we return, we'll be talking about something else entirely. Stay with us.